Welcome to the second episode of An Adult Life as a Child. I want to dedicate this episode to Rosita, who's a mother, a grandmother, and much more. I grew up around her family and have so many beautiful memories with them. And Rosita loved the sea, especially the North Sea, the Mediterranean Sea in Corsica. And I hope that with this video, her memory can live with this little piece of sea forever. That's why today I want to talk about what I learned from my mom about life after death and how you can apply this learning directly into your life. I remember one day being a teenager and seeing my mom light a candle, and I asked her what she was making the prayer about. She corrected me and explained that it wasn't a prayer, it was a blessing. It was a blessing for the dead, and that she was saying the name of her mother to remember it, because according to Jewish culture, as long as someone's name is said, they never really die. Now that was a confusing thought for me, because my parents raised me in a very scientific background, in that I knew that death was a one-way street. I knew that once you die, that's it. You're gone. You're not alive anymore. And so hearing my mom talk about how there was actually a way to live after death seemed strange. And so she explained that it wasn't quite life as we think it, but it's the memory of life. And that as long as the memory is alive, the person never really dies. I didn't quite buy that story, to be honest. I was dubious, but it was part of the most beautiful world that my mom's heart knew possible. And so that inspired me, and I kept that idea in my mind, and then I observed it later in high school through celebrities and people that young people, teenagers, look up to, admire, and worship. And so I saw all these people whose posters would hang out in my friend's room, in my rooms, and how their stories filled our lives the same way that the stories of our friends filled our lives, and that the stories of our parents filled our lives. And that in that sense, these people in many ways were just as alive as anyone else. The fact that they were dead to our lives wasn't as significant as how alive they felt for us, and I could see they looked for everyone. So they weren't alive in the sense of breathing and waking up every day and having breakfast, but they were definitely alive in our hearts and in the reality of the world. Then later in life I did fundraising trainings and consulting, and so I attended a workshop by an incredible guy called Richard Radcliffe on legacy fundraising. So how do you ask money from people who are about to die? And I thought it would be a creepy session, but the guy turns out to be hilarious. And when asking about why he's so passionate about dying people and asking money from people who are dying, he explained that really legacy fundraising is all about life. What it is about really is the things that people wanted to do in their life but never managed to accomplish, and that through their death they can use the money and the resources they have, and in their death they can make happen what they wanted with their life. And in that way, legacy fundraising is really about continuing life after death. And not just in a memory sense of it, but in a very tangible manner. For example, the Nobel Prize. Mr. Nobel was a scientist who invented dynamites, and he felt really bad for all the lives that were taken and all the people who were killed because of his invention. And so he used the money he had, the money he made, to create this amazing prize for people who achieved great things in different fields. And now we remember Nobel as the Nobel Prize. These beautiful, inspiring things. And the Nobel Prize has actually helped some people achieve more. And so Nobel lives every day through the achievements of these people in a very tangible way. And then since I moved to Costa Rica, I got to experience death in a different manner. Which is that I've been seeing dead animals and animals dying all around me because there's so much life here that obviously there's a lot of death. And what fascinated me is to see that every animal that dies and that's found dead is actually surrounded by other animals eating it. And so every dead animal is actually food for another animal. Every death is source of life. The very fact that these animals can die means that they can provide source of life for other animals to continue on the journey. And that gets me thinking that really the meaning of death is more life. That the best way we can die is by being source of life. So how do you apply this today? Because you're probably not planning to die in the next day. Sorry, estoy trabajando.
Digo, pura vida.
Pura vida. So how do you apply this in your real life? Because you're probably not planning to die anytime soon. Nope. So what does this mean for you today? There's something I do with my client that is called the death of identities, which is looking at what builds who we are and who do we think we are, and to psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually kill these identities, kill these selves, so that you can make the space for a new self to grow. There's a guy who reached out to me recently because he had last year an idea for a global event, and with no funding and out of nowhere he ended up having an event that happened in over 40 countries, involved tens of thousands of people, and he has now hundreds of thousands of people waiting for him to do something else next year. So after 2 coaching sessions, he told me that the biggest difference for him was that before we spoke, he saw himself as a guy who was basically stirring pots in his kitchen. You know, he thought of himself having a cool idea and a hobby of doing it. And after our 2 conversations, he certainly saw himself as someone who's responsible for a movement that is global, and that actually it's not about him being alone in his kitchen stirring pots, but that there are hundreds of thousands of people waiting for him to create that amazing thing. And that shift in perspective for him, that shift of identity from being an amateur to being the leader of a movement, to being someone who is responsible for something important in the world, means that his attitude is changing completely. And the way he's looking at now raising the money he needs to build a team to grow this and make it even more impactful makes a lot more sense, seems a lot less scary. And now this is the part for the exercise where you apply this in your life directly. First thing, if you haven't done yesterday, if you haven't done the exercise from the previous video, I'll pop a link under here. And what you want is to go through the video and do the exercise at the end about where you spend the time in the past, in the present, and in the future. So your three different selves. Once you've done that, get on with this exercise. So in this exercise, what we're going to do is to kill past selves, and to kill present selves, and to kill future selves, so that we can make space for new selves, new identities. So what you want to do is take the list that you made yesterday. You want to look back at what you have yesterday, and you want to read through everything. And every identity on the list, you want to write down a plus or a minus. Is this identity constructive? Does this identity serve you? With this identity, do you do more? Are you building the future that you want to build when you think that you are that person? That's a plus. Next to the identities that are destructive, and the identities that are actually not helping you grow as an individual, not helping you build the kind of life and future that you want to have, you put a minus. And what you'll notice is that something that may have been a plus in the past may become a minus. To give you an example for myself, I used to think of myself as a workshop trainer, facilitator, and a speaker. And that was part of my identity. And it was serving me well, because when I believed that I was a trainer, facilitator, a speaker, I did really well in those three fields. And then eventually someone told me, wait, but you're a coach. I thought, nah, I'm not a coach. I'm a trainer, I'm a facilitator, and I'm a speaker. I'm not a coach. That's something different. And what happens is that slowly over time, I realized that I was also a coach. And there's a point where being a trainer, a facilitator, and a speaker became destructive, because it was stopping me from being able to become the best coach that I could be. And so suddenly what used to be a plus became a minus, and the coach was used to be a minus because it was distraction from what I was doing as a trainer, became a plus because now it became a new opportunity. And then being a coach became a limitation, because it meant that I wasn't able to do videos like this, I wasn't able to write as much as I wanted, and I wasn't able to do some of the stuff that I wanted to do, because that didn't fit into my identity as a coach. And so I had to cross that out and open it to being someone who cares about the art of a magical life, and for whom coaching is one of the elements, and training and facilitation and speaking are part of it, but they're not my identity anymore. They're pieces of the puzzle. So once you've identified the pieces of your identity in the past, present, and future that serve you, and the pieces that don't serve you, make a meditation over the next week to notice every day how you are being each one of these identities. And when you're being the ones you don't want, and when you're being the one that you want. Well, the one that serve you and the one that don't serve you. I look forward to hearing the result of your experiment. Send me an email, a message, or post a comment to this video. And we'll have a conversation about what your experience is of killing past selves.